It's that time of the day again.
Oh, great. Guy's gonna be late again.
Time to get informed about the nerdy things you love.
I got plenty of time.
On today's show, Kevin Smith, he had a heart attack. We're gonna go over his status. Infinity War, massive rumor about Tony Stark losing an arm. Reylo, it may be confirmed in the novelization of The Last Jedi. We're going over all of that, plus your questions.
I'm gonna be late!
I'm your host, Josh Lucas. This is the Nerdy News Rundown, broadcasting live from Uncanny in the King of Prussia Mall, Philadelphia. Let's get this show started. Hello. What is up, everybody? It's Josh. This is the Den of Nerds. Guys, this is it. This is the show. This is what I've been talking to you guys about. This is the Nerdy News Rundown. This is a show that's going to be on 5 days a week, and we're going to have it on at noon every day. Not today, because there was some slip-ups. It's the very first episode, so there's some growing pains, stuff that we're trying to figure out. But the show is going to be taking place at noon, Monday through Friday. I'm literally going to be here in Uncanny in the King of Prussia Mall. And God, these guys are awesome, man. Shout out to Uncanny for sponsoring this show, for allowing me to come in here. I really wanted to be in a comic book shop. We're literally in it right now. You might see people literally shopping for comics and hanging out behind me and, you know, just kind of doing their thing, because I really wanted to be in it. I wanted to be in the thick of it, right? So thank you, Uncanny, for sponsoring the video. Rob McPhee, who is the guy you saw in the intro clip in the video, he is going to be on the show every Tuesday, so hopefully his first appearance will be tomorrow, and we're going to talk all sorts of cool stuff. But we got an awesome show. You can see the topics, right? We're going to get into this. So let's start off the show with the first topic of the day. And the first topic of the day is kind of actually a little bit of a sad piece of news, but it could be way worse. I'm, of course, talking about Kevin Smith. Kevin had a massive heart attack. He suffered a massive heart attack late last night. He almost died. And this is sort of a crazy story, right? It has a little bit of multiple layers. First of all, obviously, my heart goes out to Kevin and his family. He's stable now. He is okay, and he's recovering. The doctors literally saved his life. He did a post on Twitter talking about how crazy it was, how, you know, it was a wild experience. If he had not canceled his second performance and went to the hospital, he would have died. And even though what he said on Twitter wasn't that extravagant and didn't really go into many details, he made a post on his personal Facebook, which was way more telling. And so I want to go into that just a little bit, not to get too personal, but essentially he just vomited after the first show. Seemed like that kind of helped him. He said his chest was really, really heavy. He was sweating a lot, and he almost went to the other show, but then decided not to, right? He was having a heart attack, and he didn't even realize it. So it's great that he was able to get to the doctors, and the doctors got to him in time, and that he is okay. I saw so many people online, so many different people were saying just how inspirational Kevin has been to them and what Kevin has done in his career and what that means for people. People absolutely love this guy. And what I really thought was interesting too is the comments that he was making on Facebook. He was saying that even though it was the scariest thing, it was the thing that frightened him the most about life, was facing death. He said that when it was all going down yesterday, that he was actually pretty calm about the whole thing, and that he thought about it and said, well, I've lived kind of an amazing life. I've had a really weird, quirky career, but it's been the way I wanted to do it. I kind of lived my way. I had a great family. I leave a lot of stuff behind. And so he said he really kind of faced it with dignity. And even though he's very happy that he's still alive, he faced his greatest fear, which was death, and he was okay with it. And so he didn't really make any posts about, you know, changing his lifestyle. I assume he will have to if he wants to stick around. So yeah, it's kind of a weird story, man. Just wanted to start here. Not too much to talk about. Obviously, I'm very happy that he's okay, and I'm, grateful that he faced death and was okay with it, and that was kind of, man, he really did live a good life, and I don't know how many people can say that, right? How many people can say, if I had to face death right now, I'd be calm, cool, and collected, and I feel like, yeah, I gave it a pretty good go. So maybe there's a lesson in there, but I want to know from you guys, what does Kevin Smith mean to you? What's your favorite Kevin Smith film? And I mean, obviously you're probably really happy that he's okay, as I am, but just, maybe put a little something in the comment section. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what Kevin Smith means to all of us, okay? Now let's get on to the next topic. This is a little bit more normal for this show, the kind of stuff that I want to talk about, and this is a doozy. This has to do with Avengers Infinity War and the Tony Stark character. There is a rumor right now that is sweeping the internet that Tony Stark will be losing his arm, his right arm, in Avengers Infinity War. And so let's go over the evidence here, and then I'll talk about what I think is going on, what I think it could mean. So Tony Stark, this image right here that's on the screen is from the Super Bowl commercial, the Avengers Infinity War Super Bowl spot. And in this spot, this is where we see the armor sort of wrapping around him. People were thinking, oh my gosh, is this nanotechnology? Is this the bleeding edge armor? Is this extremis? Like, what is this exactly? And whatever it is, people were thinking, okay, maybe it's coming out of his glasses. Maybe it's coming out of the arc reactor that's in his chest. Who knows? But this image right here, if you slow it down, it looks as though it is coming out of his hand. And when people took it frame by frame, they started to think, how does your hand even move like that? It doesn't even make sense. So that is kind of what started the rumor mill talking about Tony's arm. Now let's show you this image right here. This is very interesting. This appears to be the beginning of the arm starting to put the armor on him, or performing a different kind of function. And if you look closely, it really does look like something is coming out of his arm, that it is a prosthetic arm, okay? Very, very interesting here. But then I want to show you this image, and this is the image that really, really solidified this for the Reddit community, right? And this is an image that you might have actually already seen. So let me put this up. This right here is a leaked image that was actually at a Russian Comic-Con several months ago to promote Infinity War, okay? Now, I saw this image a long time ago. I didn't think too much of it other than, wow, this is dope. It looks like the armor that he had for the Guardians of the Galaxy run. This is probably equipped for space travel. There's a knife, which I found kind of weird. But people were saying online, man, look at the image here where his right arm is that cannon. And people are saying, look at the size of that cannon. Where is his arm in that, right? Because think about that energy, the amount of power, the weapon itself. How could that exist there if his arm was actually there? And the answer is it couldn't, okay? And what's very interesting here is in this same image, if you look at the image of Tony that's holding the knife, he has a cannon on his other arm, but the fist is still there. This is leading people to believe that while he still has his left arm, the weapon here on the right is perfectly displaying that Tony Stark will lose his arm in Avengers Infinity War. And so I wanted to break this down. Now, do I think it's possible? Look, I looked at these evidence. I looked at these images. I'm starting to really buy into this. I'm starting to think that he loses that arm, right? But how could this happen exactly? From what we see in the trailer, it looks like when he meets up with Doctor Strange in the Sanctum and then walks outside, the way they cut that is it really looks as though they're just, boom, here we go, and then they're going to fight Thanos, right? Because then we get the images of Thanos kind of beating on him, a fight in New York City, Spider-Man's hanging on one of those weird things. But I think this is what's actually happening. I think what's happening is the Black Order is the first wave of invaders on Earth. So I think they're going to come down and invade Earth first. And so that could happen very early on in the film. This movie, by the way, is going to be massive in length. I think it's going to be the longest in the MCU, as well it should be. I mean, come on, it's Infinity War. We waited over 10 years for this thing. We're 18 films in. Give me a 4-hour movie with Thanos. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I want. But in either case, what if the very beginning of the movie is the Black Order coming down and maybe even sort of a spy capacity or something, and Tony gets in a conflict with one of them, and they literally rip his arm off, right? I mean, how absolutely insane would that be? The very beginning, this could be before the credits. Before the credits, we come down and he's fighting maybe like the Black Dwarf or Proxima Midnight or something, and she cuts his arm off because that spear that Proxima Midnight has is like uber powerful. That thing can can cut through anything, maybe even vibranium. It cuts on the molecular level, which is very interesting, very, very cool. So my thought on this right now is that in the very, very beginning of the film, Tony could take a L and lose his arm. And think about this. One of the things with Infinity War is we want stakes, right? Not filet mignon, but like stakes for the character. This has to be a darker film. It has to showcase what they could lose and how real the danger is. And I don't know if there's a better way to do that than to have Tony lose his arm. Because Tony's a builder. He's always tinkering, right? He's always building new suits. He does that. He doesn't want to stop. And so he'll lose that arm and have to sort of build himself a new arm with one arm. It's absolutely crazy when you consider that Wakanda is going to enter the fold after the post-credit scene of Black Panther, and we know that they're going to play a much bigger role in the MCU. It is very possible that Shuri helps him get this new mechanical arm, and from that arm will be how this extremis or bleeding edge armor comes out and encapsulates his body, okay? So that's kind of what I think is going on, and I do buy into it, but I'm very interested about what you guys think. Do you look at these images and say, yes, A plus B, yes, this makes sense, he's probably going to lose an arm? Or you think, there's no way, that's way too ridiculous, people are going and reading way too far into this? I'm very interested to hear what you guys have to say about this. Answer those questions in the comment section below. Let's go ahead and have a conversation about Mr. Tony Stark and his arm. Now, let's get into the next topic, and I know a lot of people are going to love this topic. This is about Reylo possibly being confirmed in the novelization for The Last Jedi. Now, if you haven't been following my channel or what I've been doing on YouTube recently, you should, because it's kind of cool. But one of the things that has been very popular on my channel is talking about Reylo. This is the shipping of Kylo Ren and Rey as a couple. I have an entire playlist dedicated to this thing. I explain it, I break it down, I talk about different aspects of it. But real quickly here, I should say that this community, right? This community of fangirls and fanboys that have just been shipping Kylo Ren and Rey since The Force Awakens, they actually uncovered a ton of evidence to suggest that this was Disney's endgame from the start. And there is a trope called Death in the Maiden, which sort of it takes place in a lot of old school stories, perennial stories, this idea of star-crossed lovers. This is a big, big thing. Now, when I watched The Last Jedi, I was more or less convinced that Reylo was canon, that they literally had strong feelings for each other in the romantic sense. And what's interesting is after that movie, a lot of my friends and collaborators on YouTube and different people that I talked to in the Star Wars community, they were like, no, I see the connection. I see how they're together, but I just don't think it's romantic. Now, the novelization for The Last Jedi comes out on March 6th, okay? And a lot of copies are already out there in circulation. Different reviewers, different people are reading this. And what's interesting about novelizations is, first of all, you got way more time. It's like something like 10 to 20 hours of content compared to, 2.5 hours that you get in the movie, right? But also the perspective is different. You can get inside the head of the characters. You can really, really know what was going on in their head, what was going on in the galaxy. It's very, very cool. So unlike the novelization for The Force Awakens, they really took their time with this novelization. They were really trying to tighten up the canon, or at least that's what we hope. That's what the canon junkies are hoping, that Lucasfilm understands the problems they're having with canon and they're working to address them. But specific to Reylo, there were some excerpts that people are putting out online in which Rey realizes that this swell of emotions that she is feeling within Kylo are actually directed towards her, that he legitimately has romantic feelings for her. And of course, they're going to explore this idea in the novelization. And so all of the Reylo fans and all of the people that have been shipping this and telling people, hey, this is a romantic connection. It's the love story of this saga and the path the future Skywalkers, when they conceive children, these people are going to feel incredibly vindicated when this novelization comes out. So that is the story. I'm pretty excited. I'm going to break it down. I can't wait for this novelization for a number of different reasons, not just the Reylo reason. I want to know a lot about what was going on with Snoke, what was going on with Luke. Very much want to dig into that. But you're going to start to hear things come out as more and more people read this book before it comes out on the 6th. So I'm going to cover that. I'm going to do all kinds of bonus videos. By the way, if you're a huge Star Wars fan like I am, you got to come back to the channel every Sunday. Every Sunday is Star Wars Day on the Den of Nerds. I do a show called Nerds Talk Star Wars. It's more like a long-form show just like this, completely dedicated to Star Wars. This episode is very heavy with Star Wars topics because both fan questions are Star Wars, and this Reylo topic was here. But if you like Star Wars, come back on Sundays for Star Wars Sundays here on the Den of Nerds. But I want to know, what do you guys think about this Reylo thing being spelled out in the novelization? Are you pumped about it? Do you think it's whack? Whatever you think is your opinion, it's completely fine. I just want to know what you think, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that are pretty stinking excited about it happening. So now I want to get into some fan questions here, okay? So by the way, too, please put some questions in the comment section, guys. I want to address questions at the end of every single episode. So every single episode, we're going to dedicate some time to going over what you guys want to talk about. You can do the super chat function once we start going live, which will be next week, or just drop your question in the comment section, and I will go over it. This first question comes from Janet Rubio. By the way, Janet is awesome. She's been a big supporter of the channel for a long time. She was watching the Last Jedi live streams with me and James Razile, and she had a question speculating about Episode 9. She asks about the possibility of Kylo defecting from the First Order with the Knights of Ren. She talks about the conflict between Hux and Kylo, and that Kylo and his guys might not be a great fit for what was going on in the First Order. There could be some sort of Game of Thrones-esque political intrigue, and it would be possible that Kylo defected and took the Knights out, okay? And so she's asking about the possibility for that as being a twist. And so let's get into this a little bit here. First of all, I do like the Hux and Kylo rivalry, but one of the big problems that I personally had with The Last Jedi was the treatment of the Hux character, right? I did not think they did that character a lot of justice. He's very, very evil in the first movie, and in the second movie, they kind of make him cheesy. That first joke at the beginning of the film I thought was, just not needed. He's sliding around on the floor because Snoke is whipping him around, and so I wasn't a big fan of that. But the rivalry is there. You definitely see Hux pull the pistol out when Kylo's on the ground. He thought about taking him out right then and there. But as far as Kylo defecting, I would say there's no way. There's no way, because he wants the First Order. He wants to be known as Supreme Leader. Usurping the throne from Snoke was a great legacy moment for that character. It's something that actually no Skywalker has ever done. All of them have sort of wanted power, wanted to consolidate, wanted to be in charge of the galaxy, and none of them have ever actually done it. So for Kylo to actually kill Snoke and become the Supreme Leader, that's a big deal for him. So I don't think that he's going to just give all of that up. But if you reverse it, if I reverse your question and ask about the possibility of Hux defecting, it's much more possible. But once again, and you sort of speak to this, Janet, when you're talking about the drama between them, that rivalry does fuel the on-screen drama. So it's actually more beneficial to keep them both in place, for Hux to be an advisor but want to betray Kylo, and for Kylo to see that he needs Hux but hate him and still want to crush him and throw him around with the Force. So I think that's way more likely. And, you spoke a little bit about the Knights of Ren. I definitely think we're getting the Knights of Ren in Episode 9. And I'm very, very excited to see what kind of a role they play and what Kylo does. And hopefully there's a big, massive time jump, right? I want there to be a big time jump in the movie, and I want us to get an established First Order with the Knights, with Hux, with Kylo, And I'm really looking forward to that. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. I know it's kind of like a fan theory type question, and I dig it and I get it. But like I said, those are the reasons that I don't think that it will happen. And yeah, I hope that they fix the Hux character though, because I gotta be honest, I'm not super down with the way they treated that character in episode 8. All right, now let's get into the last fan question here. This is a very interesting story. This was actually going to be the lead topic for today's show, but it's not really trending at all. People are not really talking about it too much. But this question comes to us from Jake Hansen. Jake has been a big supporter of the channel as well, always active in the comment sections. I really appreciate that, Jake. His question was about the rumors and the news about Colin Trevorrow's firing from episode 9. Now, real quickly, let me recap this story for people that don't know who Colin is, or maybe you're not like super actively engaged with what the directors are doing, what's going on with Star Wars. So Colin Trevorrow was hired to write and direct episode 9. This was after his massive success with Jurassic World. And although I like Jurassic World, I was actually never crazy with the idea of Colin doing episode 9. I was like, dude, 9 is probably the most important movie in the saga, and I don't know. I just didn't trust the guy. I didn't trust his pedigree. I was pretty nervous about him doing it. Now, when he was fired, they gave us sort of the blanket corporate statement about, look, there were problems, creative differences, your normal everyday PC stuff, right? But recently on Reddit, someone who claims to have ties to Lucasfilm, who claims to have a very good source, has laid it out there that there were 2 big reasons that Colin Trevorrow was fired off episode 9. And you're not going to believe this stuff. He had 2 things he wanted to change about episode 8. Episode 8, of course, being the lead up and sort of setting the stage for what Colin was going to have to do in episode 9. And these 2 things were, 1, not to kill Luke Skywalker, and 2, not to kill Snoke. And I know what you're thinking. Holy crap, that is exactly what all the fans are saying, and you're absolutely right. So let's dig into this a little bit. Here's my thoughts. Colin and Mark Hamill are actually friends. And Colin is a big fan of Star Wars. And if you're a big fan of Star Wars and you're a filmmaker, the Luke Skywalker character has a total reverence. There's this really special place in your heart. And if you're about to take over and play in that sandbox, the Luke Skywalker toy is something you want to play with. And it is said in that post that Colin literally told Lucasfilm, you can't kill Luke Skywalker after just bringing him back into the fold. And he didn't want to do that. And we know from a lot of interviews that Mark Hamill had a huge problem with this as well. Mark was not down with the treatment they did with that character and the way that they killed him off. In fact, there are some interviews out there where Mark is asked point blank about the version of the story with Luke Skywalker in episode 9. And when I originally saw these interviews, I was like, wait, what is he talking about here? Colin had a vision for Luke in 9, and that's not going to happen anymore. Like, what exactly is he saying? By the way, that leads credence to this thread, right? But essentially, Mark Hamill did these interviews, was talking about that, and literally said, I forget the way he worded it, but he's like, look, this is a no-win situation. I love Kathy, I love Ryan, and I love Colin. I was excited to be doing the story that Colin had for the Luke Skywalker character in episode 9. And now we're not going to get it. So what this literally implies is that Mark Hamill and Colin Trevorrow were like, yo, Kathy Kennedy, yo, Lucasfilm, yo, Ryan Johnson, don't kill Luke Skywalker. This is not something that people are going to be excited about. This is going to cause some problems, right? And so they had all the red flags, all the warnings from people that had been heavily invested in this IP for years and years and years. And so that's kind of a really interesting thing. Now the second point about not killing Snoke, once again, something that the fandom had a huge problem with. And I think from Colin's perspective, he's more like, well, what the heck kind of a movie are you going to leave me to make after you do those 2 big drastic changes, and then you expect me to sort of wrap this up in a tight little bow? Snoke is the big bad. He has to loom large, and I want to have these moments with him and Luke in episode 9. So once again, I should say this is speculation. at this point. We really don't know if it's true or not, but that is the rumor out there that Colin Trevorrow literally was saying exactly what most of the fans were saying about episode 8 and wanted to give us a completely different episode 9. Remember, there was also that story about how Daisy Ridley had asked Colin about what would happen to her character in episode 9, and apparently it was so moving that she cried right then and there. She cried. And so all of a sudden, the guy that nobody wanted near episode 9, all of a sudden we're starting to empathize with him, right? And if this story's true, it just means that instead of them being like, hey, maybe Mark Hamill, literally Luke Skywalker, and this Colin Trevorrow guy, hardcore Star Wars fan, maybe they're onto something. Maybe we shouldn't kill off Luke Skywalker. Maybe we shouldn't kill off Snoke, and we should do something different. And Ryan and Kathy were literally like, pack your bags, Colin. You're out of here. You're fired. And to me, man, I just find this story really, really crazy. I almost hope it's not true, because it would just be one more just example of Lucasfilm being tone deaf to the fan base, tone deaf to creative visions. And man, if they literally fired this guy because he wanted to do the thing that all the fans are now screaming at Lucasfilm about, whew, I mean, that is something, right? So I'm very interested. What do you guys think about this? First of all, do you think it's true? Second of all, if it is true, what does it mean for Star Wars? What does it mean for Kathy Kennedy, man? Look, like I said, this story was not trending. Not a lot of people were talking about it. I wanted to cover it here because Jake gave me that question. And so I'm very interested about what you guys think. Hit me up in the comment section below about this, okay? Now, one more time, I just want to shout out Uncanny, letting me come in here, letting me do this show. I'm excited to evolve this show over time. I want to keep it probably between a half hour and 45 minutes with at least 15 minutes dedicated to fan questions every day. So please, if you have a question you want me to go over on tomorrow's show or in a future show, leave it in the comments section. I'm more than happy to talk nerdy things. Once we start going live, we can use the super chat function, and I'll hit every single super chat question, no matter how long it takes us on the stream. I'll hit them. But until then, we're just going to have to sort of do it in the comment section. So let me know what you want to go over. As I said, today was a little wacky. The first recording of this didn't actually go well. The audio was jacked up. And so I had to do it again, really trying to hit at noon tomorrow. So at noon every day, Monday through Friday, the Nerdy News Rundown. Come hang out with me. Let's talk about some nerdy things. Tuesdays with Rob. Hopefully going to get some guests on here, do some cool segments, start doing some trivia and some giveaways to get you guys really, really involved. But that's going to do it for today's show. As I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and nerdy day, and I will see you tomorrow.